What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Dear Miss Fantasy show with me, your host, Tara Roberts. This is the official mailbag show for a player profiler. It is Wednesday, November 5th. It is week 10, and I'm taking your questions live, and we are talking rankings as well. So as always, welcome in. If you're not subscribed, please make sure to subscribe. I will be here for the next hour-ish. We always go long, but I'm gonna keep it succinct to an hour here for the sake of the podcast, right? Let's start off immediately here and go to the chat because the chat is live and active right off the bat here. I'm going to go super chats here first from NN4MZ. What's up? What running backs and wide receivers do you think that I could get for Allen? Best pieces in positions involved are Darnold, Chase, Ibuka, and the running backs are Javante and Manungai. Oh, okay. So you're wanting to get Josh Allen, or you're wanting to trade Josh Allen. If you're, because I know that you've asked something similar before, but I can't remember if you have Josh Allen or not. But if you are wanting to get something in exchange for Josh Allen, my recommendation would be looking along the line. Well, you have Kyle Manungai, so DeAndre Swift would be a nice, easy switch there, just in case. So you've got your running back and the high upgrade there as well. And then vice versa. I think, and even if it's the other way around there, I think in terms of running backs, DeAndre Swift is a really good target there. I know obviously there's some potential fear because we just saw Chuba Hubbard lose his job to Rico Dowdle after he performed extremely well in his absence. I think the issue there in terms of being the differences is that DeAndre Swift was very strong right off the bat, right? There hasn't really been any issue with him. He wasn't underperforming. Overall, Kyle Manungai had looked good before, but there was no clear discrepancy in terms of talent level between the two. Whereas when we're looking at Carolina, there was definitely the issue that the entire time it seemed like Rico Dowdle was outperforming Chuba Hubbard there. Wide receivers, I think Jalen Waddle is a very interesting one. That's been one of my favorite trade targets for a while there because I think he's really undervalued in terms of how people perceive him. Obviously, the tie to Tua Tagovailoa is a big one. I've talked about this one a lot, so I won't belabor on this one. But the tie to Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel is a major issue for a lot of people. At the end of the day, he is the wide receiver one there. Obviously, the Dolphins, he was the trade candidate talk, but the Dolphins were clearly never intending to trade him at any point there. So that's a good one to aim for. Potential other options, I think maybe, dipping into Cincinnati is a very interesting one because I think both T. Higgins and Chase Brown kind of, fit that profile of being a good counterbalance there in terms of a trade offer. Obviously, when we're looking at that Cincinnati defense, Trey Hendrickson stayed. We had one piece go away at Logan Wilson, but at the end of the day, they're still extremely, extremely targetable subpar defense there. And they're going to continue. The offense is going to have to continue to push aggressive volume there. So both in terms of trade targets, T. Higgins and Chase Brown are also two very, very interesting ones as well. And then we had one more super chat there. I think we have two more super chats from Meggie, blue to you. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Stafford, Darnold, Goff this week. I have Manungai, ETN, White, Allen for 2 RB and a flex, and then Hunt, Spears, Worthy for gonna buy. Juwan Jennings, Troy Franklin, Trey Benson, Zonovan Knight, Tyler Algier, Malik Washington available. Should I drop and pick up who? So in terms of the quarterbacks there, Stafford, I like a lot this week. I have him ranked. Let me move my rankings over here so I can see my rankings and you guys at the same time. I have Stafford ranked as QB. Come on, internet, go with me here. I think it's QB 8 or so. Yeah, there we go. QB 8. I like the matchup with San Francisco. Obviously, the defense has been a little up and down. They're having some pieces come together. They're trying to be coached up as good as possible. But at the end of the day, they're missing a lot of talent there. Goff is a top 10 quarterback for me. I like the matchup with Washington, but I do think that he is more at risk of this being a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery day where, Stafford has, like a QB 15, 17 day. So good matchup here, but I think he's a little bit more risky there. Matt Stafford is the one that I kind of lock in there. And then Darnold is, up there as well with the matchup against Arizona, but Stafford is the one that I would definitely go there with. And then for the rest of your question there, you have ETN. So, it's interesting. So we're definitely not, it does not look like we're getting Trey Benson this week, unfortunately. Sorry, not Trey Benson. I'm looking at Rachaad White. Does not look like we're getting Bucky Irving this week, although it doesn't look like we're getting Trey Benson either. So doesn't look like any of the guys on IR are returning this week. But for you, because you have White in particular, when we're looking at that, more than likely he is going to be the RB1 there. Last week's performance was obviously very disappointing in terms of the fantasy output. We did have Sean Tucker come up and get a little bit more involved there, but I still have White ranked in the top 20 there. Matchup is not excellent, but yeah, I've got him ranked in top 20. Fantasy Pros ECR does not have him ranked accurately right now, and that's because there's still a lot of people that are ranking Bucky Irving kind of high right now on the speculation that he'll be back there. So I don't have a good gauge on that one. But for me, I feel comfortable in top 20 for him. I also have ETN top 20. And then Kyle Monangai is, obviously a big issue here in terms of figuring out whether or not DeAndre Swift is going to play. He got in a limited practice today. So, but he was limited last week as well. Was he limited or did he not practice at all? That one I can't specifically remember. Because he had been limited playing through the injury, but maybe he had switched to a DMP. But it looks like Swift might be trending in a positive direction, so we have to wait on that one. But I do think that we feel pretty comfortable with ETN and White on a bye. Now, I would advise you to drop potentially one of those guys that you have out this week and pick up Troy Franklin as well. Troy Franklin definitely needs to be rostered. He is essentially operating. Now he leads the Broncos in targets. He has leaped over Cortland Sutton. It's a recent thing, right? But overall, for over a month now, they have been kind of running very, very similarly there. So the rapport, we know that Troy Franklin has that built-in existing rapport from college with Bo Nix. So it's entirely possible that he could at least become more so a 1B. I don't know if I want to feel comfortable saying that he's going to take over, but I feel extremely comfortable with Troy Franklin in my starting lineup right now. So I would pick up Franklin and flex him for sure. And then one more super chat here and we'll do this one super quick here, from Shorty. Does Isaiah Davis hold any value or drop? Yeah, we can go ahead and drop him. He's a handcuff. But when you're comparing situations in terms of handcuffs around the league, you'd rather have a Brian Robinson, right? You would rather have an Ollie Gordon. You would rather have a Kyle. Well, obviously you can't pick up Kyle Monangai anymore, but if for some reason anyone drops Kyle Monangai, but I don't think that I hold Isaiah Davis in that tier up of handcuffs. We did see him offer some standalone value in that last game, but it really seems like that might have been matchup driven in more difficult matchups. I don't know how much I trust that. So yeah, unfortunately, so frustrating. He's a drop. We've been stashing that. And then the most frustrating part about that one, guys, is the reveal that Kansas City made an offer on Breece Hall, and they offered a fourth, and the Jets wouldn't bite. Like, we were this close to our ideal situation of Breece Hall getting traded to an excellent offense, and then Isaiah Davis, our stash, being ascended into an RB1 where he would, consistently be an RB2 with a little bit of upside there. So frustrating. The Jets just consistently ruining everything for us. Wish them nothing but the worst. No, sorry, Jets fans. It's Woody. No, I like the Jets players. I like Aaron Glenn. I just don't like Woody Johnson there. Just spoiling everything for us, unfortunately, there. Very, very frustrating. From Gwen P. Wide receiver. Malik Washington. Oh, got it. I like that. P Washington or Malik Washington. So both the Washingtons there, and then Tez, and then Watson, Coleman, and Austin. I believe it's Parker that I have the highest. It's either Parker or Tez. We are not expecting Chris Godwin back this week. Tampa Bay is killing us right now. You need to put Tampa Bay and San Francisco killing us right now. Some guys needed to be put on IR or something because that's just it's looking bleak at this point. So with Tez, I'm on my running back rankings here. And I can't show, and I'll show you guys rankings of my graphics once we have some top 24 questions here. But those guys are outside of the top 24 for me. I have Tez as my wide receiver 37. And I have Parker Washington as my wide receiver 32 right now. Those are the two that I trust the most at this point. Jacoby Myers coming to the team, it'll be interesting to see how much they use him right off the bat here. He'll have a full week to prepare, so I would expect him to be integrated here, but we won't have Travis Hunter. More than likely, we're not going to have De'Ami Brown, and it seems shaky right now in terms of Brian Thomas Jr., so at the end of the day, Parker Washington, regardless of what Jacoby Myers gets or doesn't get there, is probably still going to see a significant amount of volume there. So that's the one that I trust the most there. And then I would go to Tez. Tez has been, reliable enough, but at the end of the day, Baker, I believe Baker will bounce back this week, but we might need a show me week from him. From Arav, Aji, how are you? Hope you're doing well also. Need 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex. Manunga, Sharp, Harvey, Etienne, Warren, Henderson. Fun group right there. And then London, Devontae, QJ, Kittle, Goddard, and Loveland. So at tight end, we are definitely going with Kittle. But quite frankly, 2 of those might be a little flexible. But let's go through the others there. So our starting tight end for sure here is going to be Kittle. That's the one that I have the highest rank there. Let me go ahead and show my tight end rankings, quite frankly. Let's see if I can do this cohesively here. And I'll hide the comment here for 1 second here so you can see. Oh, and I'm also going to have to hide my my banner here. Always blocks. There we go for the YouTube audience here. Top 24 tight ends this week. We're deep at tight end, right? To the point where we've got some excellent guys here, in terms of Mason Taylor at 17, Jawan Johnson at 16. Jawan Johnson, by the way, guys, has been performing at a, tight end 1 level for a few weeks here now. So we're at a trustworthy level with Jawan Johnson. Again, that little midseason slump that he had was just a little bit of a slump. He's a low end tight end 1. But at the top, obviously, Brock Bowers ascending. We still feel super. We got Jacoby Brissett as the starter of the future here. Kyler Murray put on IR. And then, just in general information, it sounds like it's not just the 4 weeks in terms of the timeline there. I kind of would operate at this point because I got a super flex question earlier today in terms of Marcus Mariota versus Jacoby Brissett. I would operate as if Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starter through the rest of our fantasy season from that perspective, just based on that timeline that they gave Kyler Murray. I know it seems like a quasi benching. Theoretically, he does seem like he's hurt. You can't just put a player on IR without an actual injury. So do they want him to play? Maybe if they were competitive, they might have rushed him back or something. But at this point, they feel comfortable with Jacoby rest of season, clearly. Then after that, Oronde Gadsden moved all the way up to tight end 3 there. Tyler Warren at tight end 4. Tyler Warren is he's moved back because he's been strong, but unfortunately the upside a little bit lacking there. The volume has been going to the receivers a lot, but he's still very safe. Then we have George Kittle, Sam Laporta. I like this week for a potential Sam Laporta boom game. Dalton Kincaid, who has been on fire recently. I go back and forth on Laporta and Kincaid, quite frankly. And honestly, arguably, I could maybe even put both of them ahead of Kittle in terms of reliability and overall upside at this point. Then after that, we have Colson Loveland at 9, assuming that we are not getting Cole Kmet back. Harold Fannin Jr., 10, very reasonable spot for him, offers higher upside as well. Kyle Pitts, Theo Johnson rounding out the top 12 there. Then David Njoku. I am higher on David Njoku this week. I'm not entirely sure. I'm significantly higher than David Njoku to the point where I was like, is something wrong with me? Last time I checked, Fantasy Pros ECR had him at tight end 23. That seems egregious to me. Unless there is something that I am missing there with him. Unless there is, let me double check and just make sure he is. Yeah, I still at tight end 23. I don't know why. Maybe that was, before the trade speculation, maybe, and it just hasn't been updated. But he is a borderline tight end 100% there. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Mark Andrews off the double touchdown game there. Cade Otton has been, reliable-ish, in terms of all of the receiver injuries there. But really, we've got just a ton of options here at tight end. So there are very flex-worthy options here this week. We've been getting a lot of double tight end questions in terms of, can we flex, start this one and flex, that one. If you've got, probably the one that I go down to feeling the most comfortable with, I'm on the fence with Loveland just because, last week was very matchup based there. My cutoff there in terms of super comfort level is probably Dallas Goedert. And again, that maybe depends on AJ Brown. We still got to figure out where AJ Brown is at in his. All right, let's put me back. Am I going to be able to put myself back into prime position here? Yes, there we go. Competent managing of the stream there. There we go. Oh, I see a comment here. Why no love for Gadsden? I love Gadsden. He was my tight end 3. I don't know if my rankings were at what I showed. Yeah, he was my tight end 3 there in rankings. No, that's okay. Tight end 3 there in rankings. So love him a ton. Also, this matchup is super good. We'll probably talk about a ton of these guys because I know QJ was the question there. Let me go back to Arav Aji there. Because you had QJ on there. He has risen up in the rankings off of the strong performance from last week. I'm actually going to drop a video tomorrow talking about Keenan Allen versus Quentin Johnston in terms of which one is the better start option there. But yeah, he's an interesting flex option there for you. But let's go back. So we're good with Kittle right there for you. When we get to the running backs here, obviously this is going to be heavily dependent on the status of DeAndre Swift. Assuming that Swift is active, you're going to need to go with Etienne and Jalen Warren there. Obviously, Harvey has shown massive upside, but he is still lagging behind significantly in terms of snaps and overall touches compared to J.K. Dobbins. I mean, I don't trust Dobbins at this point significantly. If I were to pit one against the other, I would probably lean towards the higher upside and the one that's actually getting the touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins hasn't had a touchdown since week 5. That is legitimately kind of crazy there. The preference has definitely tilted towards the receivers and RJ Harvey. They're just leaning so heavily into the pass once they get into the red zone. So it is what it is there on J.K. Dobbins, unfortunately. He's not involved in the pass game, so there's nothing that we can do about that for him. But so assuming, again, if you need a high upside swing, you can put in Harvey. But the safer options are Etienne and Warren. The Jags definitely leaned on Etienne a lot last week, and I would expect them to continue to do that again with the receiving core dealing with so many injuries there. In terms of your wide receivers there, Devontae and Devontae and QJ are the ones that you would go with. And then flexing. Flexing is where we might go ahead and just turn to the tight end and go with Dallas Goedert on that one. I missed that you have London. Sorry, no, scratch that. You're going to go with London and QJ on that one, and then Devontae can be your flex option. It is close, quite frankly, between Devontae and Goedert on that one, extremely close. Goedert has shown significant upside and a lot of preference from Jalen Hurts, so it's very borderline there, but I still would probably lean towards Devontae, assuming that we may not get AJ Brown back. And then obviously, if DeAndre Swift is out, you would plug in Kyle Monangai over Travis Etienne specifically. From Nay Deasy, should I drop Pearsall for JMO or hold? Yeah, do it. Ricky Pearsall is the bane of my existence, man. Because I was unabashedly pro Ricky Pearsall. And I hate to consider people who get injured a miss from that perspective, but man, that hurts and it's frustrating. I roster him in so many places. Yeah, I'm okay with holding with going ahead and dropping him for Jameson at this point. Jameson has an excellent. I talked about him in the trade video. Rest of season schedule is pretty good. The playoff schedule for Jameson in particular is excellent there. With Pearsall at this point, we don't know when he was going to come back. And San Francisco has done this before where a player has been out for an extended period of time and not put on IR. It seems very arbitrary there. And even when he does come back, he could be on the same timeline of return as Brandon Ayuk, and then that makes things messy as well. So yeah, just go ahead and make that pivot there. For Meggie, drop Hunt, Spears, Worthy, or Worthy, Ferg, or Hunter for Franklin. That one is tough. I would probably lean towards dropping Spears would be the one that I would drop. I go back and forth on Hunter from that perspective, just because the 4 weeks, we don't know if it'll be the 4 weeks. It could be extended past that. They said it's not a long-term injury, but at this point, we're talking 3 more weeks here. That puts us heading into week 13. Yeah, let me do math there. So it would be week 13 at the earliest that we would get him back. So there would still be the potential that he could return for the fantasy playoffs. I just wish there was more clarity around his timeline, but because he had really shifted into that last game potentially being the wide receiver 1 of the future there, and BTJ has looked so awful. I hate to drop him at this point unless we get a more clear timeline there. So I probably lean towards Spears. And then, all right, cool. So that covered the super chats, I think. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to jump to some of the newer questions and then work my way back. Actually, you know what? If you dropped a question before the show, let me go ahead and do that out of all fairness there, because you were here super early there. Nate Bonenfant, Vidal over Jacobs was not a good move. Survived the facepalm, moved to 8-1 this week. Do I let Baker break my heart or give Caleb the chance to do the same again? Love your work. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nate. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you always watching. I love seeing your face there every single day. Or every single week. At the show, I have Baker higher. I have Baker as my QB 9. And I have Caleb as my QB 12. It's a close one. It's close because Caleb, in theory, could go a little bit higher. The matchup is, so Fantasy Pros ECR has him as QB 9, and then they have Baker Mayfield. Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry, guys. I realized I just muted myself accidentally. I don't know how. Oh, I don't know how long I was muted. I am so sorry. Um, Shoot. What was the last thing you guys heard? When did I click that? Dang it. Okay, Nate, so sorry. Let me answer your question here. Going back to this. So sorry. I don't know how long I was muted. Now I'm gonna have to go back in the podcast in like 1 minute. Thank you, Joey. I hate when I do that. Nate, I have Baker Mayfield. Marvin says I was muted for an hour. I just read the question. Perfect. Thank you, Thomas. Perfect. All right. So Vidal, So when we're looking at that, Baker Mayfield and Caleb, I have Baker higher. I have him as my QB 9. Caleb, I have as my QB 12. I'm a little bit lower on him than consensus, slightly lower than consensus. They have him at QB 9. The reason for that is because, like, when we're looking at Baker Mayfield, obviously we expect him to bounce back there. Very frustrating, the lack of production that he's had over the past couple of weeks. But in all fairness, Caleb Williams has been inconsistent from that same standpoint as well. He's been excellent in playing up in like really good matchups. So Dallas and Cincinnati, right? But when you get into those kind of questionable matchups, New Orleans, he did very poorly against. Washington was a QB 10 performance there. Baltimore, mediocre there. QB 20, very disappointing. So I don't know if I have the extreme trust level with him because he's super inconsistent there. All for the bye week. I feel like Baker Mayfield is going to bounce back here. Don't hate the matchup as well. So I would go with Baker in the duel there with Drake May. Obviously, we do have very good defense upside there for New England, but I like the matchup there. Not too difficult. Nice bounce back opportunity here. So I would probably lean towards the stability of Baker coming out of the bye week than Caleb there. But they're both top 12 options for me. Can't go wrong-ish with either. I just have a little bit higher trust level there with Baker. Megan. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I missed your super chat. Let me see. Megan, your super chat was, yours was super early. Did I miss some? Okay. Megan, JJ or go for Penix, London stack with Dak on a bye? That's a good question here. You know what? Let's show my quarterback rankings here, which means I'm going to have to move down all of the, or I can just read it there so you guys can, I'll just read it off there. I have Josh Allen as, no, that's tight ends, of course. Quarterbacks, there we go. Josh Allen as my QB1, Lamar Jackson, QB2, Justin Herbert, QB3. We have a high level of trust with Justin Herbert at this point. The matchup is excellent there. Then we have Drake May, Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, Bo Nix, Matt Stafford there we talked about earlier, Baker, my QB9. Jared Goff at 10. It is cut off at 11. That is Daniel Jones at 11. Caleb Williams at 12. And then Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy all the way out to QB 14. And I am fully aware that I am a little bit over consensus on that one there. No, actually not aggressively. Consensus, Fantasy Pros consensus, ECR has him at QB 15 there. I honestly thought I had him a little bit higher ranked than consensus. So, I thought I wanted to be a little bit higher ranked on him. I like the matchup with Baltimore. Obviously, the defense pulled itself together a little bit there, but at the end of the day, they're still vulnerable. And when you look at JJ McCarthy, again, I think I talked about him in the start sit video last week, or at least in the waiver wire video. We don't need a ton of volume from him, although he is going to have to push volume in this matchup because that Minnesota defense is struggling. And I do expect Lamar Jackson to pick it apart here. So we might see a little bit more force volume here for JJ McCarthy. And from that perspective, that's good there. But it's really the rushing upside that makes him more of a trustworthy option here. I understand, the stack with Penix and London is appealing. I do have Penix as my QB 20 there. And let's see where he is in ECR. He is QB 20. He is so consensus is really QB 20 there. So JJ definitely has the leg up on him with the rushing upside. Penix ceiling is extremely high, but the level of volatility, I just can't trust it on that level. The matchup with McCarthy there against Baltimore, that's the direction that I would lean there for sure. Let me make sure if I miss any additional super chats. Yeah. Okay, no, I'm good. Okay. But yeah, rounding out the rankings there, one other thing to notice there is Jacoby Brissett. Quite frankly, I could kind of go Jacoby Brissett over Justin Fields as well, so I might adjust that one. But Jacoby Brissett has moved up in rankings a lot this week. At some point, we have to feel super comfortable with him. The matchup against Seattle tends to lean more beneficial to the pass because they are tougher against the run. So when we're looking at that offense, then at this point, we clearly know that they don't trust any of their running backs. So when we're looking at it from that perspective, he's had a QB 7 performance, a QB 12 performance, a QB 10 performance. since becoming the starter for Arizona. So Jacoby Brissett at this point, extremely trustworthy. I feel like QB 17 is underselling it there a little bit with the upside that he has shown, in Seattle being a matchup that definitely leans more pass friendly there. So that kind of rounds things up. I am lower on Marcus Mariota than consensus in general. The reason for that, quite frankly, is that the floor is super low on that one. I get the rushing upside there for sure, but overall, it really is just extreme volatility there. We don't have Terry McLaurin. Deebo Samuel is obviously, fantastic. I love Deebo there. But at the end of the day, it's not the ideal situation. That has also meant that I have moved Zach Ertz back in rankings as well. So we've kind of got a little movement back there in rankings. From 408 Thomas, Jane Daniels. And just to kind of keep things like in perspective here, I'm going to start at the bottom of the chat now that I got through the super chat. So if I missed your question, and if it was with not a super chat, just ask it again here, because I tend to get like super far behind, and then I'm playing like catch up for a solid 30 minutes there. So just to kind of keep the show in line here. From 408 Thomas, Daniels went down for me, and I'm starting Jacoby Brissett. Yeah. And I don't think that's a bad option to go with as well. I mean, I really, again, I feel like I'm underselling him. Fantasy Pros ECR has him at 19. I think it's underselling it, really. From Easy B3242, Dynasty Wise, Adonai Mitchell or Malik Washington. I think I lean towards AD Mitchell on this one, and this might just be optimistic, like Roses. Malik Washington is speedy and talented, and obviously more than likely going to see a coaching change there in. Well, I don't know, but more than likely, I do think we might see a coaching change there in Miami, and maybe that change can shift how he's utilized in the offense, because right now his utilization is just kind of frustrating in terms of it being a super low ADOT. I mean, he's barely used beyond the line of scrimmage, and he's capable of going downfield. So, but AD Mitchell is very interesting for me. He's talented. It just was tough for him to consistently break through in that Colts wide receiver room, because when you look at it, I mean, just they were stacked, to be honest. And I feel like the Colts wide receiver room is kind of undersold a little bit there. I love Michael Pittman. I've been a Michael Pittman stan. It's been wonderful seeing him coming into his own here. Even when you look at potential trades, I mean, I feel like Michael Pittman is just so way undervalued here. You can even, buy him at a reasonable level. And he is literally, in terms of average points per game, he's literally the wide receiver 10 on the season there. He just doesn't get the respect that I think he deserves there in terms of being a true wide receiver one. And then, Josh Downs, everybody loves. Alec Pierce, everybody loves. So at the end of the day, kind of like there wasn't much room for AD to really get through. So this is good for him. Get out of there. Is the Jets organization the organization we want you to be with ultimately? No, right? But at least you're out and you have the opportunity to showcase, even if it's with, Justin Fields, who, often doesn't, struggles a little bit to get the ball to the wide receiver 2 there. But he's got a clear path. There's not a lot of competition there. So he'll be able to showcase what he's got here right off the bat. So I would take the chance in stashing AD Mitchell, and maybe he is able to showcase something that is of value here at the, in the back half of the season there. So I'm happy he did get traded there. Thank you for the super chat there, Carlos. Really appreciate you. And as our producer, Morgan Grimes, said, do not forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. From Henry, Odom, Goff, or Flacco, rest of season. Rest of season is interesting there. You got me on that one. Oh, man. Flacco, rest of season. I know. But yeah, it's Flacco, rest of season there. The only risk you have is, due to age, can he play an entire season? It's arguably been a while since we've seen it, but the old man is out there kicking. He played through an injury, coming off a bye week. So, hey, maybe he'll, feel a little bit better and get some rest there. But yeah, rest of season, it's Flacco for me. The Cincinnati defense, again, is just bad on another level there. So that'll give us a good opportunity to consistently get volume. He's going to have to keep chucking the ball because they're not stopping anyone. Whew. And they have a really good strength of schedule. I mean, quite frankly, let me pull this up. Well, actually, I can't do that super quick because they're not in rankings. So I don't know if I have strength of schedule up right now, but off the top of my head, really good strength of schedule rest of season and good playoff schedule as well. From Paul Israel, Juwan Johnson or Schultz. I have Juwan Johnson higher. Juwan has been, fairly reliable recently. He got a little bad rap because we all bought in and got super excited about him. But he's leveled out, finally come back around here. I don't love the matchup with Carolina. I think it is a little bit more favorable towards tight ends, but over the past, 3 weeks, he's had tight end 12, tight end 11, tight end 8 finishes. And we have the exit of Rashid Shaheed. So theoretically, that should help as well in terms of target share there for him. So yeah, I feel really good about Juwan Johnson as a nice, safe streaming option there. From Robert Walker, David Montgomery, Woody Marks, or Aaron Jones to start this week. It is, you know what? Let me not lie. Actually, we haven't shown the running back rankings. Let's go ahead and do that. Running back rankings. Can I figure out how to add you to the stage? Nah, probably not. This is like the bane of my existence here, trying to figure out how to get the, there we go. Ha ha ha, look at me there. That is QB, so maybe I can, no, I'm not going to be able to do it. Why am I so bad at the production aspect of this? Shoot. Okay, no. I got it. I'm going to do it here. There we go. All right, perfect. We've got the running back rankings up here. Yay. I can't see that super well, so I'm going to read them off here on my side monitor there. But at running backs, the top is very standard there. Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan, James Cook, who is questionable, but it doesn't seem like there's a major issue. Jahmyr Gibbs, like him for a bounce back week in this matchup here. Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley slipping a little bit in the rankings there as we all kind of come to terms with, who he is. And it doesn't seem like the injury was an issue there. So we should be good on that end. Rico Dowdle, Josh Jacobs, the find Rico Dowdle, Kyron Williams, Ashton Genty in the bad matchup there. Very interesting. I had Ashton Genty as a trade candidate. Kyle Monangai, I have at 13. I'm just going to operate right now. You have to make that decision in rankings in terms of which one is going to be the starter here. So I'm ranking right now as if Kyle Monangai is a starter, but quite frankly, it's an easy switch. If DeAndre Swift is a starter, it would be a 1-for-1 replacement, and Swift would be around RB 13 or so. And Monangai, based off standalone value, would probably be ranked around RB 30 to 35 range. Then after that, we have Jaylen Warren, Breece Hall, who's a little bit further back in rankings for me. That is more matchup based, with Cleveland being a difficult matchup there. Quinshon Judkins, assuming he is good to go this week. Travis Etienne, Rashad White, assuming that Bucky Irving is not playing this week. J.K. Dobbins, I'm further back in the rankings on J.K. Dobbins. Again, I talked about this a little bit, and I'm going to drop a video tomorrow in terms of start sets. It's going to talk about it as well. But at the end of the day, it is highly, I talked about it when we were talking about RJ Harvey. At the end of the day, it's highly concerning that Dobbins has not had a touchdown since week 5. He's still getting red zone touches. I parsed it down to, over the past, several games there. And so we're still getting red zone touches from him. But for some reason, his are not, I don't know if it's that his are not productive or that specifically RJ Harvey is being given the more high value touches in the red zone, but one is producing and one is not. And for that reason, Dobbins has moved further back into my rankings. I still think he's a trustworthy, top 24 start there. But at this point, we've got to, temper our expectations there just a little bit. After that, Travion Henderson, assuming we get no Ramondre Stevenson, David Montgomery, Kamani Vidal, RJ Harvey, and Jordan Mason is there at 24. So we're looking at it from that perspective. David Montgomery is the one right now who is the most trustworthy. He is the only one coming in as a top 24 option. I have Woody Marks ranked slightly behind him, not super behind him, at RB 27. And then I have Aaron Jones. I do not have ranked, assuming that he might not play this week due to the injury. They said that it might not be long-term, maybe back and forth there. They're not 100% sure here. So that one, I am pushing him back. And Jordan Mason, I have at Jordan. Where are you at? RB24. That's right. RB24, assuming that Aaron Jones does not play there. And that is matchup based in terms of Baltimore being, an agreeable matchup there in general. But if Aaron Jones did play, I would still have him probably a little bit further, because it would mean that he would be splitting with Jordan Mason. So he would probably fall back maybe right below Woody Marks there for me in rankings if he were playing there. So it's David Montgomery that I trust the most there. Woody Marks I could lean into if it were a better matchup. Jacksonville in general has been, just for the entire season, rather stout against the run. So it's not an ideal matchup there. Montgomery with the ideal matchup against Washington. So that is the direction that I go there for that question. So thank you. That's a good one there. I'm getting so much better at this production thing, guys. It's almost going to be like by the end of the season, I'm going to be cooking here with being able to show my pictures. From Jeff Rogers, need a wide receiver one, or need wide receiver. Troy Franklin, Alec Pierce, and Darius Slayton. It is Troy Franklin that I have the highest on that one. Again, I talked about it a little bit earlier. At this point, we trust him a ton in terms of, that split being fairly even with Cortland Sutton. And shout out to Queen J. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind comment there. And I appreciate you tuning in as well. I appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you so much. We are going to take a quick break here. I should have done that a little bit earlier, but it would be very good if we took a quick break here to hear a word from our sponsors. And we'll be right back after this.
Oh, working out so important for your health, for your sex life, for everything, just everything in general. I perform better across the board, podcasting, you name it. The last thing I need to be thinking about is, working out so important for your health, for your sex life, for everything, just everything in general. I perform better across the board, podcasting, you name it. The last thing I need to be thinking about is, creating a new workout routine. That's why we have Fitbod. It prevents you from plateauing. It's so customizable in that I have one super strong shoulder and one kind of weak shoulder. And yet the Fitbod app helps me customize my workouts to improve the strength and the endurance. I go in, my physical therapist is like, I can't believe you're doing this many. And I'm like, I know. Can you believe this? And he's like, yeah, this is crazy. So level up your workouts. They have over 1,000 demonstration videos. And join Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan, which includes 25% off, or try the app for free for 7 days. Go to fitbod.me/player, fitbod.me/player, FITBOD/player for 25% off for 7 days free.
And there we go. All right, back to the chat here. Let's see. Where did we kind of leave off there? Big Lou. I was all for Derrick Henry, Harold Fannin for my Pickens, Goddard, 12-man full PPR. Do I accept? I have Bucky. I am a Bucky owner and have no depth at running back. I think that's very, very reasonable there. At this point, if I have confidence in one thing, it's the fact that Dylan Gabriel can only hit tight ends and no wide receivers, which is painful, man, because that got one dynasty share of Jerry Jeudy that is suffering immensely. It's like just awful. And I don't know that Kevin Stefanski will make a switch to Shedeur Sanders anytime soon. I know everybody has a lot of opinions on Shedeur versus Dylan Gabriel, but at this point, we know for certain that Dylan Gabriel heavily favors the tight ends, and that's the design of the Kevin Stefanski offense. But quarterbacks can hit wide receivers in that offense, but you have to be a competent, quarterback. Even Flacco was performing better towards the wide receivers earlier in the season. So at this point, Fannin is a weekly top 12 option just because of the fact that even regardless of the presence of David Njoku, we are having aggressive targeting of the tight ends there from Dylan Gabriel. So I think that's extremely, extremely reasonable. I would accept that offer there for sure. And I love Derrick Henry rest of season. His rest of season schedule in general, I am very, very fond of. From Cordarius Kidd, Theo Johnson or Jawan Johnson in standard. In standard, I do lean towards Jawan. In standard, I think I still lean towards Jawan on that one. Again, we have the exit of Rashid Shaheed. Do I have I have more confidence in Jackson Dart to throw touchdown passes, but I also feel like once we get into the red zone, Jackson Dart is obviously running more designed runs and also calling his own number there because he's so dynamic at the red zone. So that kind of hurts things a little bit there for him. So I think I lean towards Jawan Johnson in standard there. From Miami, Martian, since starting 0-3, I've acquired Josh Allen, Cook, Javonte Williams, Henry, London, Pittman, and Garrett Wilson. Now Amon-Ra, once the trade process, once the trade process goes through, you're 4-5, got to keep grinding. Nice. Excellent work there because you're never out of it, right? Doesn't matter how you start off, you are never out of it. Excellent work. Joseph Massey, Knicks, Daniel Jones. I have, let me not lie to you there. I have Knicks higher on that one. Daniel Jones, QB 11, Bo Nix, QB 7. So yeah, I would go ahead and start. Vegas defense, that's a little suspect there. Atlanta's defense, I think Daniel Jones should have a bounce back again. Not even a bounce back, quite frankly, because even though he had just the most ungodly amount of turnovers, he still had a decent fantasy day. It wasn't that bad. He had 17 fantasy points there because he threw for extreme volume, had touchdowns as well. So it wasn't a major issue there. I expect a bounce back here. Atlanta's defense can be a little bit, as long as you're a competent quarterback, you can handle Atlanta's defense there. But I still do lean towards Bo Nix in this matchup with Las Vegas there. And then Kamara or Bam. I would go with, or would you pick up Singletary or Gainwell in full PPR? Thanks for the great content. Thank you for watching. I would take the risk there and go, let me see because none of those guys were on our top 24 rankings graphic there. Because I've moved, I just don't trust Kamara at this point. I really don't. I have Bam Knight at RB 37. Don't love the matchup with Seattle. I have Alvin Kamara at RB 31. I have Kenneth Gainwell higher than Bam Knight at RB 34. And then I have Singletary as the highest ranked of those guys at RB 29 against Chicago. I would pick up Devin Singletary for sure. I just don't trust Kamara at this point. I believe he is higher ranked in Fantasy Pros ECR. It's optimism, not even that much really. He is RB 27, so that's not that much of a difference there. I just don't trust him at this point. And Bam Knight, unfortunately, with the bad matchup, and we did see, for any Arizona running back, and quite frankly, because we've had trade questions regarding Trey Benson. And while I am optimistic that it should shift back to Trey Benson once he returns as the clear RB1, I don't know if I have that trust level with Arizona at this point, unfortunately, because we have had so many flips back and forth in terms of where they are shifted. It's truly a hot hand situation. And we can't predict the hot hand because their hands are all the same. There is no clear discrepancy. There's no clear difference in terms of their talent level, unfortunately. So predicting who is going to have the hot hand in this matchup, it could be Bam, but it's a bad matchup. Do I trust it? No, I don't. It probably leans towards one that might be more beneficial to Amari DiMercado. So yeah, I don't trust Arizona at this point at all in terms of their running back rotation. I would go ahead and pick up Singletary. I do think it'll continue to be a split with Tyrone Tracy for sure, but it's a good matchup against Chicago. So it's good enough to where I would prefer to go with him. at least knowing that he does have the potential as the clear goal line back there for sure. And then other than that, if you're not willing to go get Singletary or you can't get him, I would shift to Gainwell, particularly in full PPR for sure. From Henry Odom, get Ricky Pearsall or Trey Tucker off waivers. I don't love so long term, if you're looking to stash one, I mean, it would be Ricky, but if obviously, Trey Tucker has more usability, we could see the uptick in volume from him with the exit of Jacoby Myers. My only issue there is that the offense runs aggressively through Brock Bowers. But as Tyler Lockett said, that's their wide receiver one. He just met him, but that's their wide receiver one, and they're turning to him. So technically speaking, Trey Tucker is probably the one that you want to go with there. From Queen Joy, do you think Monangai and Loveland will have boom games this week as well? I do, for sure. Loveland, I feel more comfortable with at this point saying yes, because I don't see us getting Cole Kmet this week. DeAndre Swift, it seems like it's on the fence there. So if Swift is out, I would still lean towards Monangai as having a really strong week this week. Matchup is not bad against the Giants. And at the end of the day, just in general, the offensive line for Chicago, I don't know if it's the run blocking or if Swift and Monangai are just thriving in that offense or what, but the run game has been really solid after, slightly slow start there. It's been really solid here recently. So with both of them. So whichever one is active and, going to be the lead back, that is the one that is definitely going to have the boom game. So yeah, if Swift is out, Monangai for sure. Locked in RB1. We love it. Joseph, Brees and Higgins for James Cook. I don't mind that. I mean, Cook has been operating at such a high level. Brees has been fine. Obviously, we have concerns there that what's this offense going to look like in terms of probably not having a lot of opportunities on the ground with the defense being shredded, right? So that's the only issue there, is that I still think Brees is I still think he's a solid, and I did list him in the trade video as well, a solid RB2. But maybe his RB1, it would be dependent on how much receiving volume he gets there. Higgins obviously has a ton of upside with Flacco, but I think this is a good trade to get all the way up to James Cook. From Kit, Baker or Daniel Jones? Sorry, didn't hear you last time. It is Baker that I'm going with on that one. Then Henry Odom again, Nico versus Marvin Harrison Jr. since Murray is on IR, and quite frankly, I'm kind of on the fence in terms of we've had so Marvin had one game where he did not play the whole game with Jacoby. And then he had one really good performance and one mediocre performance. So I don't feel like we have a good sample size to know if the rapport there is super good or not. But in the last game, it looked excellent there. I believe I have Marvin higher. No, I have Nico higher. Fantasy Pros, ECR has him at wide receiver 8. I have him at wide receiver 8. Yeah. And Marv is at wide receiver 17. That might be underselling it a little bit, but honestly, especially coming off that performance. But quite frankly, his finishes have been rather mediocre over the past, it's been, excluding the one game where he didn't play the whole game, wide receiver 23, wide receiver 40. So the wide receiver 6 finish was good, but we still probably have to lean into Nico as the one that has probably got the more reliable volume there. But quite frankly, again, not having CJ Stroud is a wee bit of an issue there, but still going with Nico on that one. Raphael, trade Gadsden and Brees for Trace Brown and Tracy. You have McBride. I far prefer that Gadsden and Brees side of that. Tracy, I don't have a lot of optimism around Tracy. At the very best, I do think that it would be a split backfield, continued rest of season there. What we saw last week was a clear snap preferential difference, leaning towards Devin Singletary, carries preference towards Devin Singletary, goal line preference towards Devin Singletary. The only leg up that Tyrone Tracy had was in receiving work, but at the end of the day, Singletary still got that. We know he's more than capable of that. So I feel super uncomfortable with Tracy. I like Chase Brown as a trade target, but I would have to get something other than Tyrone Tracy. That one, I can't get on board with that one, unfortunately. From RT Khan, RJ Harvey versus Loveland in my flex. I would go with Harvey. I would lean towards the upside of that because at the end of the day, Loveland is obviously coming off that fantastic game, but the floor for a tight end is not really any different than what Harvey's floor is there. So lean towards the upside there. The place to be. Thank you so much for this comment. This is funny. Tara is my favorite woman after my wife, mom, grandma, cousin, Michelle Obama. You're funny. Thank you so much on that one. Owen Daniels, what is my take on who will replace Tucker Kraft in production? Watson, Reed, or Wicks? I think, that Luke Musgrave is going to take over a good bit of that work there. Musgrave was a good prospect there. Same draft as Tucker Kraft. He was drafted higher than Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft was just superior. And Musgrave has filled in very adequately for Tucker Kraft in the past. They trust him. So I think that we're going to see a decent amount, not the same upside. Like, he is not Tucker Kraft, so don't get me wrong. It's not going to be a 1-for-1 replacement there. But in terms of presence on the field and targets, I do think that it'll lean a little bit towards him in terms of getting the majority of maybe like 75% of the work that he was getting. And then we probably would see an uptick involved to the other wide receivers as well. At the end of the day, the wide receiver that I trust the most there at this point is definitely Romeo Doubs. Watson, obviously, have some upside there for sure, but just consistency wise, for sure, Romeo Doubs. And then once Jaden Reed returns, he probably will operate as the wide receiver 1. That's my assumption there. But we still don't know exactly when we'll get Jaden Reed. But he's a good stash for right now, just because, again, assuming that we get him back by the fantasy playoffs there, that's someone that we can potentially feel comfortable with as a week-to-week flex option there. But yeah, I think Musgrave's existence is going to it'll work out there for him. I've moved him into my top 20 there. Loveland or Gadsden there from Queen J. Gadsden is the one that I have ranked the highest. Jeff Rogers, Browns defense or Carolina defense? I did not include my defensive rankings in the graphics. I have the Browns defense higher. Browns is my 7th defense, and then Panthers as my 9th there. So both solid top 10 options there. I would just lean towards the Browns on that one. From Uncle Ted, good question. Would you add Terrell Jennings? Yeah, because it doesn't look like Ramondre Stevenson is on track for this week. We do have to be a little bit cautious there, just because, again, the snaps aggressively favored Ramondre Stevenson. So he was or Travion Henderson, he was definitely operating as the RB1 there. But Jennings got very valuable touches. I think that he's a perfectly fine add there. Again, it's a toe injury for Ramondre Stevenson. We know that those can be a little fickle. Look at Brock Purdy, right? So, yeah, I think it's worth an add here just to see. I don't feel super comfortable with him at this point as a flex option, but it's worth it to see what continued presence that he has here, because you can add him on the cheap and it's not, anything that you have to spend any fab on or anything. Jeff Rogers, should I keep Scary Terry and Mason? Yeah. I would keep both. Jordan Mason I would keep because, again, we don't know if Aaron Jones is going to play this week. He did suffer that little injury. They said maybe a 1-week thing, maybe not. So we still need to see if he's going to be active this week. But Mason, if we do not get Aaron Jones this week, would be a low-end RB2. And then Scary Terry, they said, would probably return after the bye week. And I think they said that would be, what was their, I want to say it was week 12. That was the estimate. Yeah, they have a week 12 bye week. And so they said after the week 12 bye week, which would be week 13, which I know is a frustrating wait there, but I would still hold on to him. Unless you're in a super shallow league, then I would probably let it go. Let me see. I do think we had a super chat here from Russell Pace. I have Hertz, HN, Taylor, and then McConkey, Waddle. Should I flex Dobbins, Olave, Sutton, or Monangai? If Swift is out, that is an easy Kyle Monangai for me. 100% there. And then if not, I still lean towards Cortland Sutton on this one. I do, again, like this matchup here. Bo Nix is the top 10 quarterback this week. Again, the split between Sutton and Franklin is like 50-50 right now. It's getting a little bit uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, Cortland Sutton is he's our wide receiver one there. So we still gotta go that direction with him. Let's see here from Nate. My start set left you speechless. Yes, it did. Your start set left me speechless. Yes. From Aris, Cloud Bay, McCarthy, Fields, or Penix. I have McCarthy ranked the highest. From Gwen P. Thank you so much. Trades. Henderson and Ibuka for Barkley and AJ Brown. I could also trade Metcalf or Dunze. Which of these wide receivers, which of the two wide receivers would you start this week? So if my preference, if you can trade Henderson and Odunze for Barkley and AJ Brown, that would be my preference. I want to keep of that grouping, and Mecca is the one that I want to keep because he has the highest upside of those guys. Then I think in terms of consistency, then it would be DK. And then Adunze, I love. I want the best for him. But again, the consistency of Caleb Williams is very frustrating at this point because he is spreading the ball around and the run game is thriving there. So I would honestly switch that out and keep Ibuka and trade either Metcalf or Adunze in that one. And then the one that I would want to start for sure, if you're keeping Ibuka on that one, the one that I want to start there is going to be Ibuka. If you are going to trade him away on that one, I would start. I believe that I have Odunze ranked the highest due to matchup. Yeah. Matchup for Odunze is, if you heard that cough, that was not me. That was my son who was coming here to steal a cough drop and is now smiling at me because he thinks this is funny. Oh, it's funny. Thank you so much, buddy. All right. Head out, boys. Thank you. Please shut the door. They love to visit. Yeah, on that one, it is Odunze that I would take the risk and start Odunze due to the matchup with the Giants this week. But again, my preference there would be to switch out and trade one of those guys and keep Ibuka on that one for sure. Oh, and yeah. So it would be of those guys. If you weren't trading any of them, the two wide receivers that I would start were Ibuka and Odunze on that one, for sure. I have Ibuka as my wide receiver 7 this week. Odunze is wide receiver 11, and then DK is wide receiver 18. Not a bad matchup with LA, just because his ceiling is a little bit lower than the other guys. That's the only issue. From AJ, thoughts on Luther Burden there next year? Unfortunately, I don't see the back half of the season breakout in line for him. There was no, we had thoughts that maybe there would be some kind of trades there or anything, but DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, that's just way too much for him to pass up. Now we've got this little breakout from from Colston Loveland as well. From Jesse Rodriguez, should I start Ramondre Stevenson? My other option is Bam Knight. We don't know if we're getting Ramondre at this point, so you might have to go with Bam, unfortunately. But if Ramondre was active, I would start Ramondre over Bam Knight. I don't trust him at this point. You're welcome, Bill. Thank you so much. Miles Logan, added Terrell Jennings. Think he will get work from Hendo or be a significant piece even with Stevenson healthy. They've spoke very positively of him and they love a committee there. The exact phrasing was 5-minute back. So, you gotta when Vrabel speaks, he's speaking there. We did that one there. From Gwen P, have another question. Trade May for Jefferson and Jameson. I can get on board with that. I like that for sure. That's good. I think that's really, really good value there. Again, Jefferson, hopefully the upside will come as, again, this week might be a good baseline. So maybe we go ahead and do that trade before this game this week, because this is a potential volume week for JJ McCarthy. And if it's a potential volume week, maybe we finally get that Jefferson boom game here that would make him a very untradeable asset. And then again, I talked about the potential there for Jameson and the matchups that he has in the playoffs that I do like. From Gabriel, start 2 quarterbacks: Fields, Penix, Jones, Mariota. It is Fields and Jones that I have the highest on there. And you have Loveland at and you have London and Pitts as well. Yeah, stacking is always fun. I don't always think you have to do it, but if you want to, the difference between Jones and Penix is pretty significant for me. So Jones has to be started there. Between Fields and Penix, the difference is not that big. If you want to, and the matchup is not awesome for Cleveland, quite frankly. I think maybe, I have him at QB 16. I feel like that's maybe a little bit aggressive there. I honestly don't mind for your purposes if you want to go ahead and go there with Jones and Penix, but Jones for sure on that one, for sure. And then I do have Mariota as the lowest ranked of that grouping there. Let's see here. From Megan, flex Tyler Warren, Aaron Jones, or Woody Marks, and your other tight end is Bowers. I would go, and it's full PPR. Yeah, I would go ahead and start Tyler Warren there. Safer floor, obviously. Higher upside is with Woody Marks. Again, I don't know if I trust Aaron Jones with the injury if he does play, quite frankly. But Tyler Ward is probably, I would just go double tight end right there for sure. From Michael, smashed it with Parker Washington. How do we feel about him with Jacoby Myers trade? I could pivot to Franklin or Horton. But tight end question is Mason, Taylor, or Loveland in full PPR. I would go Loveland in full PPR. I don't think we're going to get Kmet this week, so we've seen good on that end. And then between Washington and Franklin, I feel like I did this one earlier, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. I believe that it's Washington that I have higher than Franklin. I have Franklin higher by one spot. One spot there. It's super close. The only difference there really is that Washington has the worst matchup in terms of Houston. Their defense has been incredibly strong. But they might have to, considering they've been extremely strong against the run in particular, they might have to pass a little bit more there. I don't know. I lean towards Franklin on this one. Washington has good volume, but Franklin's matchup is better. So at the end of the day, we might have to lean that direction there. From Meggie, Caleb Williams or Matt Stafford this week? Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is the one that I have ranked the highest. And thank you, Maggie. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I have Stafford ranked 4 spots. Can't count. 4 spots ahead there. Kenneth, Mark Andrews or Loveland? I would go with Loveland on that one. Again, we're assuming all my Loveland questions are assuming that we don't get Cole Kmet there. Eddie Johnson, first of all, thanks for well-educated input for years. Awesome. I've won the title in 2 leagues in 3 years. Nice. 2 league titles in 3 years. Awesome. Question: should I start Franklin because of the double-digit targets compared to Sutton? And I have the Knicks stack. Yeah. I don't know if it's a one versus the other. I like them both this week. But Franklin, if it's just Franklin that you're wondering if you should put into your starting lineup, 100%. Strong flex option this week. If it's one versus the other, I still have Sutton ranked higher. It's so weird to look at the recent stats and you want to lean into Franklin. That one is tough there if we're comparing the two. but my lean is still on Sutton on that one. But Franklin is an extremely trustworthy option in terms of start this week. And quite frankly, as I think about my rankings, I think I'm a little bit too low on Franklin this week. We do need to trust him at this point for sure. From Abreu, should I drop Pearsall to pick up Jennings? And pick up Jennings, Pierce, Troy, Slayton, Troy on that one. Yes. We are pro Troy Franklin tonight in general. From Bobby, drop Bam Knight for Singletary. Yes. And then who is the better pickup, Ray Davis or Ty Johnson? I don't, on a week-to-week basis, I'm not going to lie. I guess my lean is towards Ty Johnson. I don't know if I trust one versus the other. I have Ty Johnson as RB6 and then Ray Davis is RB58. Now, matchup wise, if you're in a deeper league, matchup wise against Miami this week, it's not a bad option there. But I think the better pickup would be Ty Johnson in terms of that receiving upside that he has. Caleb Williams or Baker? I have Baker higher. From Fighting Solves Everything, Herb/Love, CMC, JT, QJ, Woody, Henderson, B-Rob, Puka, Tet, Sutton, Higgins, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, Warren, 10-team, 2-2-2 flex. Do I try 8-1? Do I try to trade Warren, Tet, Woody for London or sit tight? I think that's an appropriate amount. And I don't mind that for you at all because I mean, you've got CMC and JT, right? So you're solid there. I do think that you can afford to make that trade in order to solidify having a really, really strong wide receiver 2 next to Puka there. Because obviously you've got some options there, but in a 10-team league with 2 flex, it would really take you to another level if you got London. And yeah, I think you can afford to give up Warren on that one. So yeah, I would make that trade. I don't mind that to get to London for sure. Jelly of the month, 4-point passing touchdown, Bo Nix in the division game versus Vegas or Sam Darnold versus Arizona. I do have Bo Nix higher there. Nico without Stroud, we're still going with it. It's as someone, as Miles said as well, I like Nico without Stroud for some reason because, and it's not, you're not wrong for that, quite frankly, because when we look at it, backup quarterbacks often tend to hyper target and lock in on the wide receiver one versus teetering around to other options. So I don't mind it, to be quite frankly. I would still start Nico this week. From our Eras Cloud Bay, Tracy or Vidal, would go with Vidal. Last week's production was not fantastic, right? I don't super trust Vidal, but I do at least know he's the RB1 there, so I can get on board with that. And it's a good matchup there as well. Not a good matchup against Pittsburgh has been tougher against the run, but considering that Justin Herbert should absolutely just demolish that secondary, I would think we would get, a couple of goal line opportunities there for him at least. And then between McCarthy, Fields, and Penix, I have McCarthy ranked the highest. Robert Walker, Keenan Allen, or Rashad White for Keenan Allen and Rashad White for Olave. I would not do that just because, again, at this point, we do not know when Bucky will be back. We don't have a timeline on here. It doesn't look like it's happening this week. I think it's a fair trade, but quite frankly, because of the ambiguity around Bucky Irving, Rashad serves more purpose on your team. And I might target specifically the Bucky owner and try to get a higher level upgrade compared to Olave. Mark Peterson, what's going on with Brandon Ayuk? Kyle Shanahan lied. He told us that the practice window was opening up. To my knowledge, it did not. I think he appears to be on a close timeline. I would expect sometime soon. They're on track they're doing well. So I think they're probably trying not to rush him back. I feel like they can make the playoffs without pushing aggressively in terms of the return timeline on there. So for our fantasy purposes, it sucks, but we still got a little bit of time on there. Yeah, and fighting sells everything, says BA is a drama queen. From Amazon Pancakes, hopefully Aaron Jones stays out of the lineup for a very long time. I need Jordan Mason to step up. They, maybe they said it wasn't a long-term injury. He's at that age where you never know. Especially because it's, shoulder injury, maybe get in there, get hit wrong, and gets re-aggravated or something. From Mo Chubby Music's Godzilla or King Kong in RB for half PPR. I think we got to go with Godzilla on that one, based off the most recent movie that I've seen. From Miles Logan, what about Adunze this week? Adunze, I still have as a top 12 wide receiver this week. I know last week was insane. I cannot imagine them icing Adunze out of the offense 2 weeks in a row like that. So this feels like a bounce back. Hopefully, Odunze seems like a nice young man though. So I don't know if he's getting out there and complaining, but I need him to get out there and do a little diva, wide receiver kind of thing there, and demand your targets. Just go out and do it. It always works. Rome, I know you don't seem like that kind of, which is nothing wrong. The wide receivers are divas, so it's whatever. But I need you to jump out your character right there and cry a little bit, whine, and they'll shoot targets over your way. Do that for us, Rome. Do it for us. And then Mo Chubby Music. Seriously, should I trade Debo for Torrey Horton? No, I would stick with Debo, just because, again, we're on a timeline of supposedly week 13 for Terry McLaurin's return there. Debo without Terry McLaurin and with Marcus Mariota is still kind of meh. But the Rashid Shaheed trade does make me a little bit nervous for Torrey. Logically, it doesn't quite make sense because Torrey Horton and Rashid Shaheed are both outside receivers. Cooper Kupp is in the slot, so you would think that, so who's going to be in the slot with Kupp out? But maybe Torrey Horton can play in the slot. He was a slot receiver in college, so perhaps if that shift happens, then we're in good there. But I don't know if that's going to happen there, so I do get slightly uncomfortable there with that. Super chat from Tommy Gunn. Thank you. Nice call on Chase Brown last week. Appreciate that. How do we feel about the Patriots for DFS this week? Kind of want to keep for next week. They're going up against the Jets. Maybe sit them. I have not looked at DFS this week. I don't look at that until Thursday because I do an article on DFS, and so that is due on Friday, and then everything else is front loaded on the week. So I don't look at that literally at all until Thursday. But that said, depending on ownership, I don't mind it this week. Tampa Bay, Baker has been a hot mess, obviously, but there's a lot of directions that I could lean otherwise because, quite frankly, there's a ton of good defensive matchups this week. And when I'm looking, when I was doing my defensive rankings in the top 10, honestly, I mean, it's squabbling over, really, really good options this week. So not for this week. They're not one of my top options this week. Let's see. Thank you, Gwen P. The boys are always good. And they always visit on your questions. Always. That's so funny. Let's see here. John Nunez, thoughts on Kenneth Walker? Yeah. Appreciate your positive comment there. I am frustrated regarding Kenneth Walker. I don't think there's anything we can do about it. You can package him up and try to trade him away. But at the end of the day, the existence of Zach Charbonnet, if Zach Charbonnet got hurt and then it would be Kenneth Walker all day long and it would be no issue. We've seen that before, that he has extremely high upside. He's performing at a high level. There's no issue in terms of his performance. It's just the design of how they have decided to shift the usage in the red zone, unfortunately. So we are in a rough spot there, unfortunately. Always be great. with Vidal Sr. Pick 2 running backs, 1 flex, pretty please. Aaron Jones, Kyle Monangai, Tyrone Tracy, Judkins, Henderson, Pierce, Tez Johnson, full PPR. And then tight ends, Loveland, Otten, Theo Johnson. The tight end is definitely Loveland on that one. 2 running backs there. Again, this is dependent on injury stuff, unfortunately. So this is a very, very injury dependent situation there. If we get no Swift, it is definitely Monangai and then Judkins, assuming there are no issues with Judkins. It doesn't appear there are any issues with Judkins. Judkins, I didn't get any injury news regarding Judkins. And I didn't see any practice information on him, unfortunately. So no news is good news. All right. So yeah, Monangai and Judkins would be the move there if we get no Swift. If we have Swift, you would need to go with Judkins and Henderson, assuming that we do not have Ramondre Stevenson, and it doesn't seem like we're on track for that. And then for your flex there, I would likely lean towards between whichever running back is not played there, between Monangai, Judkins, and Henderson. That would be my lean there. Even if Swift is back, then I would probably lean towards going with Tez Johnson for you. Slightly over Alec Pierce, but they're very close there. Gwen P wants to see the wide receiver rankings again. Let's see if I can manage to do that. Boom, there we go. Wide receiver rankings. And let me see if I can. No. It shows them completely. I like this version better. That completely shows all of the top 24 options there. Cool. From Marvin Tolbert. Dart or Hurts this week? I have Hurts higher. Do like Dart this week, but Hurts higher this week. And Marvin also says, get the likes up. Thank you there. From Ronan, I always forget to ask for likes and subscriptions. I like kind of space out on that one. From Ronan, Tez or Christian Watson? I'd go with Tez. RTO Khan. Do I have the list of best playoff schedule? I'm going to do a video on that one specifically. If I pull it up right now, my computer will freeze. It will. It's like if certain pages have videos on them, then it gets messed up. And so I don't want to risk it right now because I did not have it pulled up. But yes, and I'm also working on a video of targets with the best playoff schedules for the rest of season as well. From Paul Knight, Romeo Dobbs or Kyle Monangai. Again, if Swift does play, then I would go with Romeo Dobbs there. Again, the Tucker Craft thing, I like Luke Musgrave to pick up a good chunk of that workload, but some of it can shift over to Romeo Dobbs there as well. From Canarius Kid, looking to trade Tet Montgomery for McBride. Tet and Montgomery for McBride, or Jennings and Theo Johnson, or Evan Ingram, also if needed for McBride. Yeah. If you're adding any of those pieces in, I think Tet, and I mean it's a little hefty, right? It's a little hefty because of the fact that we are so thin at running back right now that David Montgomery is one of the more valuable safe RB2s. That's the only issue there for me. But if you're solid at running back, I don't mind that trade at all. Yeah. But it's a little pricey. But at this point, McBride is operating at such a high level. We have Jacoby Brissett rest of season, so rest of assumed season right there with Kyler on IR, and probably extending past that 4-week IR time period. So yeah. Burkham, Tez or Demario Douglas? I would go with Tez on that one. Playmakers. What should you do with Chris Godwin and Brandon Ayuk remainder of season? So we know that Ayuk is going to come back. So we're keeping Ayuk. Supposedly he should be returning very soon. And we do know that there's a clear gap in the 49ers receiving core where they are just not filling it whatsoever. So Ayuk, I feel more positively about, Godwin, unfortunately, we've got no timeline there. So it's a hold just because we don't have any indication, but it's a very frustrating situation, unfortunately. We did that one from Brandon, Cruz, Montgomery, or JMO and Flex. Montgomery is a safer option. They both have good matchups. I lean towards Montgomery. I don't mind Jameson as a high upside swing, but Montgomery is my preference there. Thank you for the super chat from Jay Harvey, Woods, DeMercado, or Loveland. I would go in full PPR pick 2. I assume that Woods is Woody. But Harvey and Loveland are the 2 that I would go with. I don't trust Arizona at this point. That's my only issue there. So Harvey and Loveland are the direction that yeah. And you said Woody Marks is the one. Yeah. Woody Marks, the upside is just a little bit limited there. Unfortunately, the matchup is not ideal. And then, Nick Chubb still exists. So Harvey and Loveland is the way that I would go there for sure. Rashid Shaheed to the moon. Cup is hurt, might go on IR for sure. The only issue there with Rashid being there is that maybe this changes because maybe they saw the light with how well Sam Darnold did in the prior week, but they have not been able to produce a relevant wide receiver 3 because the offense is running so aggressively through Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I don't think they're going to reduce his workload. So really, there's only room for one wide receiver. And theoretically, it depends on where they line up Rashid Shaheed and Torrey Horton. And because I can't predict that, that's the only issue there in terms of why I can't lean towards Horton versus Rashid Shaheed. I lean slightly towards Rashid on that one. But again, it's going to really, really be dependent on how they line up on the field in terms of who's going to operate as the wide receiver 2 there. From Ella. If you need your wide receiver to go full Antonio Brown, then you're in. If you need your wide receiver to go full Antonio Brown, then your analytics failed you. No, not full Antonio Brown, just like AJ Brown, right? We don't need you to go Antonio Brown, but we do need you to get on the sideline, read a book, and look very sullen and frustrated. You can even pull a Stephon Diggs and just, be a little salty in social media and whatnot. So yeah, I would not go as far as removing a team from your Twitter handle and whatever, right? Your bio, right? But express yourself express yourself a little bit more there, Rob. From Ares, Jennings, AJ Brown, Tracy, Gadsden, and Flex. You have Bowers. We still don't know about AJ Brown this week. I don't trust Jennings. I don't trust Tracy. It's Gadsden that I would go with for sure. If AJ Brown does play, then AJ Brown, but Gadsden for sure. And then Gwen P, would you add Tillman or Reed? I would add Reed and stash him. The problem there with Tillman was kind of operating as the wide receiver 1 a little bit over Jerry Jeudy, but again, that was with Flacco. We don't have any reference of Tillman with Dylan Gabriel, and I don't trust Dylan Gabriel to throw to the wide receivers. So unfortunately, it's got to be Reed for the stash there, a higher upside ultimately, unless they make that switch at quarterback. Angelo, Dart or Herbert? Herbert on that one. From For Us Greens Gaming, Penix, Dart, Tua, to back up Indiana Jones, lost Jane Daniels. I would definitely go with Dart on that one, the rushing upside for sure. From Jay, should I drop Chubb? Yeah, or Chuba, should I drop Chuba? At this point, he's just a handcuff. We do know that, in theory, he would be a high upside handcuff, but quite frankly, there are other directions that you could go. So yeah, he's a handcuff. If you need to move on from him, perfectly fine. Enrique, lacking wide receivers. You have Waddle, Tet, Myers, Pearsall, Franklin. You have Bowers and Kincaid. Yeah, you should trade. Bowers will get you the most bang for your buck. I hate to trade Bowers because, again, the lack of the wide receiver 1 there, true wide receiver 1 there, I feel like they are going to hyper target Bowers at just such an insane rate. And we, only have 1.5 game of him healthy in terms of upside there. So I don't know if 3 touchdown games are going to be the norm, but I think we're going to see him jump to an extreme level there. I would try and trade Kincaid. Obviously, Bowers is the only one that can get you a true wide receiver one if you want to. But man, I hate to get rid of him. But yeah, one of those guys does need to get traded there, unfortunately. Point. Jawan or Troy Franklin this week. Troy from Tony, 10-man flex, Waddle or Wandale or Franklin. I have Wandale is the stabler option. I have Wandale higher this week. Burkra or Burkham, Keenan, Diggs, or Tet. I believe I have Tet the highest there. Keenan, I am worried about. Oh, well, it's pick 2, so it's Diggs and Tet for sure. I'm high key concerned about Keenan, unfortunately. From RT Con, yes, we are dropping Isaiah Davis for sure. From Belinda Davis, really appreciate all the info. Thank you. With Nick Chubb being questionable, would you play Woody over Kyle if Chubb doesn't play? Not if so. Let's say that Chubb doesn't play and Swift doesn't play. That's definitely Kyle Monangai for me. But if Chubb doesn't play and Swift does play, then I would play Woody over Kyle Monangai. Yeah. So again, you're playing the injury game there. Apples to apples. If both of them are the lead back, I lean Kyle Monangai. And then beyond that, you lean to whichever one has the player that is out there. From Miles, yeah, the Torrey Horton situation is interesting. I have JSN, and it's going to be a guessing game to wait and figure out there. I mean, ultimately, we want to see who fills into that Cooper Kupp role, but it was weird because Horton and Rashid Shaheed are very similar players. I understand why they traded for Rashid, although it was kind of weird because obviously the other wide receivers stepped up, so I thought maybe they were showcasing they had good depth there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they line up there for sure. And then one more super chat here from Erez, Cloud Bay, Jennings, AJ Brown, Tracy, Gadsden, and Flex. You have Bowers on that one. If he is healthy, it is AJ, but if not, you're going to double up on tight end and go with Gadsden. Gadsden has quite frankly been the most reliable pass catcher there over the past month, the most reliable pass catcher for LA. And then for Maggie, Keenan or Franklin for sure. I got Keenan Allen's snaps have been reduced. It is potentially a major problem there, unfortunately. So trust level, it's a good matchup, but trust level is just a little bit down with Keenan Allen. I'm going to drop a video tomorrow that talks about that. But other than that, guys, I appreciate you all joining in. Thank you so much. Chat was awesome and live as well. So I always appreciate you tuning in. You know what? I just saw that Cordarius has a question here real quick. You have Irving, JK, and Amari and Hampton on your roster. You're considering acquiring Charbonnet to replace Montgomery with the goal of acquiring McBride. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to replace Montgomery with the goal. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Hopefully you get one of those injured players back there soon. From Brayu, Bam, or Singletary, and then Stevenson. If Stevenson is healthy, that's the one for sure. Would you drop Bam for? Yeah, I would drop Bam for either one of those guys for sure. For sure. Either one. Thomas just picked up Loveland for Kraft, but there is still Trey Tucker, Taz, Tootin, Watson. Which one do you think has the most upside rest of season? Tez, I believe, is the one that I lean towards on that one. And then, we got chats coming in. Okay, I'll just keep there for a second. We do got to close out. From Mr. Lee's, trade Nico, Olave, Swift for Lamb and Chase. Yeah, I don't. To upgrade to, I don't mind that. I mean, Swift has been so reliable, but Swift for Brown is a fairly even trade there. And then Nico and Olave to get Lamb. Yeah, I would make that trade for sure. From Al, Apocalypse. Starting Genty and Judkins this week. Start one for Flex, Vidal, Aaron Jones, ETN, Watson, Monangai, Harvey. If we have no Swift, Monangai for sure. And then if not, ETN is the next guy that I think is the most reliable. I just, matchup is interesting for Vidal, but man, that that floor has been a little suspect, right? But other than that, I appreciate you all tuning in. We're going to close things out here. Thank you so much. Again, this is the Dear Miss Fantasy podcast. We're live on YouTube, but if you would appreciate supporting the podcast, it is available on all platforms as well. So make sure that you are subscribed to that. And then also shout out to Player Profiler. Make sure that you are subscribed and following Player Profiler as well. That is who this podcast is through, the Player Profiler Network for sure. And then, oh my gosh. Okay. All right. It's one more there from Jenny. Oh, we did that one. No, we did. You're going with Gadsden on that one. Gadsden for sure. But that wraps things up, guys. And as always, I appreciate you subscribing to my YouTube channel as well. It's Tara time. And I will be back here again with you all next week, same time, same place, 8 p.m. EST. Start Set Questions live. And of course, dropping videos all week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will talk to you all again next week.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.